Scott Peelen was part of the Florida delegation at the Republican National Convention. He's now a managing partner with Moreno, Peelen and Company, which provides financial planning to small businesses along the I-4 corridor. My old friend, it's good to have you back with me. Welcome to the 50,000-watt front porch. Make yourself comfortable, Scott.
There's no other front porch I'd rather be on at this hour of the day. So thank you for having me.
So you're up there with a ringside seat. Tell us all about it.
Well, this is my fifth convention, but this is the first one I've ever been as a delegate. I was referred to as a delegate alternate. And this one, I guess you always remember your first kiss and you always remember your first convention. My first one was the Ronald Reagan convention in 1980 in Detroit. And that was unusual in the regard that no one quite knew who the vice president was going to be. And they were doing all this silly things, so trying to get Jerry Ford to say, I'm coming out of retirement. And everyone knew that was just a mess in the making. And there was all this controversy at that. I remember I was sitting up way in the rafters at Cobo Hall in Detroit with former Texas Governor John Conley. And he was there shaking his head. He said, "What is going on down there?" And then everyone came to their senses, and they picked George H.W. Bush.
Right.
And, we know what happened there. So there was a lot of intrigue at that particular convention. This convention in Cleveland had its own set of intrigue, mostly because the people who have always gone to these conventions, I call them the worker bees, the people that are party loyalists and elected officials, as you put it, and so on. About a third of the group this time were newbies, and they were Trump supporters. And there were, I hate to put it this way, but a fair amount of suspicion between the old guard and the new folks.
Sure.
And I have to say that's one of the reasons, in my view, that we have this millennial controversy. I said that incorrectly. Not millennial. What's Donald Trump's wife's name? How do you say it?
Melania.
Melania. I firmly believe that story was fed to NBC or to one of the other networks that were waiting to pounce. And
You're talking about the plagiarism off the Michelle Obama speech from 8 years ago? Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just going to be a real mess. But what I say is that the old guard people in my party did a fabulous job of connecting with the new folks, making them feel welcome, feel at home, feel safe and comfortable. And by the end of the week, I really feel as though that they had made some pretty good friends with the new Trump folks. And
now, what about the candidate himself? I mean, you were pretty close to him in the convention hall. What's your impression of Donald Trump having come off that convention? I mean, his speech played to rave reviews and clearly is responsible for the bounce he's getting in the polls.
Well, Bud, I have never seen anything like it as far as the public speaker goes. I mean, you and I have a lot of experience of watching speeches over the last 30 years, and this one was the most unusual because you can, excuse my good grammar, you can not watch Trump. He's up there with these hand gesticulations and facial mannerisms and the way he speaks. And his speech, if I'm not mistaken, was the longest acceptance speech that has ever happened at a convention.
Yeah, an hour and 15 minutes.
And gracious, it didn't seem like that long sitting there. I was about 45 feet away from him. I wanted to be on the floor. I was sitting right by Congressman John Micah, and both of us were saying, my gosh, this is this extraordinary activity of communication, because it's like watching a car accident in Daytona or something worse. You can just not take your eyes off it. It's fascinating.
But obviously you're not saying that we had a car wreck here. We obviously had a successful speech at the end of the convention. As a delegate at that convention, what kind of stuff were you doing on a day-to-day basis, Scott? And I'm getting a little tight on time here.
Okay, well, we have the party perfunctory things that you have to do is, what's going to be allowed for the cycle and for the next 4 years, just as you would in any organization. But mostly it was just a great opportunity to have a lot of conversations with political leaders. Florida is the biggest state that's in play of the big states, New York, California, Texas. Florida is the only one that's truly in play. So we had Rudy Giuliani, we had Chris Christie, we had John Bolton, former UN ambassador. We received an enormous amount of attention one-on-one from these people, and it was a great opportunity to get to talk to the major players of our party face-to-face.
Before I let you go here, I have to believe you're a Trump supporter now, but at the beginning of this process, hardly anybody believed he had a chance. Who were you backing initially, and how have you changed in regard to where your loyalties have been throughout this amazing process over the last year?
Well, Jeb Bush and I have been friends for decades. Jeb and I are about the same age. I've worked in every single one of his campaigns. I'm a Jeb guy. And unfortunately, Trump characterized my guy as the low-energy candidate, the non-ever-ready bunny. And it really hurt Jeb personally. It hurt me. It really burned us, a lot of us who are Jeb people, up. So it really took an awful lot of fence mending. And I will say that this was a two-way street. The Trump people, after a day or so, said, we can trust the old guard of the party. So I was originally for Jeb, and I'm very disappointed that Jeb decided not to come. I wish he would have been there. I give Marco a lot of credit for at least endorsing Trump and having that video presentation. So I was in with both boots with Jeb. It didn't work out that way. But one thing that is happening, and I'm seeing it every day, is more and more people are becoming more and more brave to say, listen, we cannot have Hillary Clinton as president. Cannot happen. And we're trying to say, hey, listen, maybe we ought to give this Trump guy a chance. And bit by bit, I think Trump is doing a lot to warm up not just the Republicans, but the entire country.
Fascinating talking with you. Scott Peelen, an old friend of mine from the news business, was part of the Florida delegation. Thanks for the inside look at the way it was in that memorable week at the GOP convention in Cleveland. I'll hope to run into you around town. Thanks for coming on the show, Scott.
All right, thanks, bud. Take care.
Scott Peelen, there you go. Interesting perspectives, I think. 407-916-5400. Text line 23680.